The news broke not with a whisper, but with a roar. It was the kind of story that instantly seized the nation's attention, cutting through the noise of everyday life. In newsrooms across the country, the atmosphere shifted from routine to electric, as journalists scrambled to make sense of the unfolding crisis. Across the Philippines, screens flickered to life with grainy footage, a small wooden supply boat, dwarfed by the imposing silhouettes of Chinese Coast Guard vessels. The images were raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore, showing a confrontation that felt both distant and deeply personal. The Chinese ships moved in, circling like predators, their maneuvers deliberate and menacing. The tension was palpable, even through the shaky camera lens, as the smaller Filipino boat tried to hold its ground against overwhelming odds. Suddenly, a water cannon blast erupted, smashing into the Filipino boat, splintering wood and sending sailors scrambling for cover. The force of the assault was shocking, a violent reminder of the dangers faced by those defending the nation's front lines. The violence echoed far beyond the West Philippine Sea. In homes and offices, in bustling markets and quiet neighborhoods, Filipinos watched in disbelief as the events unfolded. The sense of vulnerability was shared by all, from city dwellers to rural families. This was no ordinary news report, it was a direct assault, captured for all to see. The footage played on a loop, each replay deepening the sense of outrage and disbelief. It was a moment that demanded attention, forcing the nation to confront a harsh reality. In Manila, office workers gathered around TVs, their faces tight with concern. The usual rhythm of the workday was broken, replaced by a collective anxiety that spread from cubicle to cubicle. The usual morning chatter fell silent, replaced by disbelief and anger. Conversations turned to questions. How could this happen? What would come next? The shock was immediate, but beneath it simmered a growing sense of indignation. For many, the attack felt personal, a violation of national pride and sovereignty. It was as if the entire country had been struck, not just a handful of sailors at sea. The pain was collective, the anger shared. The footage showed Filipino sailors, battered but unbowed, holding their ground. Their courage in the face of overwhelming force became a symbol of resilience, inspiring millions who watched from afar. This was no distant dispute, it was a human drama, a David versus Goliath moment unfolding in real time. The bravery of the few stood as a challenge to the many, a testament to the spirit of a people unwilling to back down. Across the archipelago, shock hardened into resolve. In towns and cities, people gathered to discuss what they had seen, their conversations turning from fear to determination. The sense of unity was palpable, cutting across age, class, and region. The incident at Ayungin Shoal became a catalyst, awakening a fractured nation. Headlines blared, social media erupted, and in marketplaces and schools, the talk was of sovereignty, dignity, and the need to stand together. Political divides faded as a shared threat brought clarity. Leaders from opposing parties set aside their differences, presenting a united front. For a moment, old rivalries were forgotten, replaced by a common purpose. From Batanes to Mindanao, one thought echoed: this cannot stand. The entire archipelago, from its northernmost islands to its southern shores, was gripped by a singular determination to defend what was theirs. The siren's call had been heard. It was a call to vigilance, to unity, and to action, a signal that the time for complacency was over. A nation, once distracted by daily struggles, was now wide awake. The ordinary routines of life were interrupted, replaced by a collective focus on the crisis at hand. Filipinos watched the horizon with new purpose and urgency. Fishermen, soldiers, and ordinary citizens alike felt the weight of responsibility, their eyes fixed on the uncertain waters ahead. The attack had united them in outrage and determination. In the streets, families marched side by side, waving flags and demanding justice, their voices rising in a chorus of defiance. The country was ready to respond. The message was clear: the Philippines would not be intimidated. A nation had awakened, and its resolve would not be easily broken. The news swept the country like a storm. In city cafes, young professionals shared videos and messages of outrage. Social media buzzed with debate: should the Philippines protest, fight back, or seek allies? In coastal villages, fishermen brought the news home, confirming what they'd long feared. For them, the threat was real and daily. The video validated years of harassment at sea. Grandparents recalled wartime stories, urging the young to stand up for the nation. Teachers set aside lessons to talk about sovereignty and identity. The West Philippine Sea was no longer just a spot on the map, it was home, now under threat. Across generations and regions, unity grew. The incident cut through daily noise, forging a shared emotional experience. Pride in the sailors' bravery mixed with anger at the injustice. Being Filipino now meant standing together. The whispers of discontent became a national chorus. The country demanded action and respect. The BRP Sierra Madre, a rusting World War II-era ship intentionally grounded on Ayungin Shoal, stands as a lonely outpost in the contested waters of the South China Sea. Its battered hull is a symbol of Philippine presence, but its survival depends entirely on regular supply runs. Lifelines that bring food, water, and hope to the small detachment of Marines stationed aboard. On this particular mission, the supply boat Unaiza May 4 set out across choppy seas, carrying essential provisions and the determination of a nation. But as it neared the shoal, the crew knew the risks. They had heard the stories, seen the footage, and felt the tension rising with every nautical mile. Suddenly, Chinese Coast Guard ships appeared on the horizon, their white hulls gleaming and imposing. Larger, faster, and more numerous, they moved with calculated precision, forming a blockade that boxed in the Filipino vessel. The message was unmistakable: turn back, or face the consequences. The Filipino crew, tense and alert, listened as warnings crackled over the radio, stern voices demanding they retreat, accusing them of trespassing in what China claims as its own territory. Each word was a reminder of the power imbalance, but also of the stakes at hand. Yet, the Filipinos pressed on. They knew these were their own waters, recognized by international law. The sense of injustice was overwhelming, fueling their resolve. The flag fluttered defiantly above them, a silent promise not to yield. Without further warning, a powerful jet of water erupted from a Chinese ship's cannon, slamming into the Unaiza May 4. Glass shattered, wood splintered, and chaos erupted on deck as sailors braced themselves against the onslaught. The force of the blast sent men staggering, soaking them to the bone and leaving the vessel battered. This was no mere warning shot. It was a deliberate act of violence. The attack crossed a line, transforming intimidation into outright assault. The crew scrambled to assess the damage, their faces etched with shock and anger. The Chinese ships loomed in the background, unyielding and silent. The message from Beijing was clear: we control these waters, and we will enforce our claim by force if necessary. The psychological impact was profound, but the Filipino crew stood their ground, refusing to be cowed. Amid the chaos, one sailor raised his phone and began to film. The footage, shaky and raw, would soon be broadcast around the world. Their bravery, captured in those moments, became a symbol of resistance and defiance. This was no longer just a territorial dispute over a remote shoal. It had become a direct challenge to Philippine sovereignty, a test of national pride and international law. The battered flag, still waving, told a story of courage under fire. The collision at Ayungin Shoal was more than a confrontation at sea. It was a test of resolve for an entire nation. As news spread, the world watched closely. The Philippines now faced a critical choice about its future, its dignity, and its place in the region. The next move would echo far beyond these troubled waters. In the aftermath, the Philippines erupted online. Hashtags like Joatanang West Philippine Sea trended for days. Social media became a battleground of outrage, pride, and debate. Memes, rants, and calls for action flooded feeds. Fear of conflict mixed with a surge of national pride. Offline, rallies formed outside the Chinese embassy. Protesters waved flags and demanded sovereignty. The attack politicized the nation. Everyone was talking. Everyone had an opinion. The public outcry put pressure on the government. Leaders could no longer ignore the people's demands. The digital uprising became a force of accountability. The nation's voice was loud, clear, and impossible to silence. All eyes turned to Malacanang Palace, the heart of the nation's leadership, as uncertainty gripped the country. Across the Philippines, millions of citizens anxiously gathered around their televisions and radios, waiting for word from their leaders. The tension was palpable, with the fate of the nation hanging in the balance. President Marcos Jr. wasted no time. He immediately convened his top security team, bringing together the country's most trusted military and intelligence officials for an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was tense, every decision weighed with the utmost gravity. The challenge before them was immense: how to respond to China's aggression in the West Philippine Sea without escalating the situation into open conflict. Every option was discussed, every risk considered, as the team pored over maps and intelligence reports. The first move was clear: a strong and unequivocal diplomatic protest. Philippine officials worked late into the night, drafting formal documents that would make the country's position unmistakable to the world. The Chinese ambassador was swiftly summoned to Manila. In a tense and direct meeting, he was rebuked for his country's actions, leaving no doubt about the Philippines' resolve. That evening, the president addressed the nation in a live broadcast. With millions watching, he vowed not to yield a single inch of Philippine territory, assuring the public that their leaders would stand firm in the face of intimidation. He praised the courage and professionalism of the country's sailors and Coast Guard, promising to provide them with the resources and support needed to defend the nation's waters. The message was clear: the Philippines would not back down. The military was immediately put on high alert. Orders were given for increased patrols and enhanced surveillance across the West Philippine Sea. ensuring that every movement would be closely monitored and every threat swiftly addressed. In a bold move, the government launched a transparency initiative, releasing photos and surveillance footage of Chinese harassment to the public and the world. This openness aimed to expose the reality of the situation and counter misinformation. By publicizing these incidents, the Philippines sought to rally international support, drawing attention from global media and prompting discussions at the United Nations. The world began to take notice of the country's plight and determination. The response was a careful strategic blend of diplomacy, military readiness, and transparent public communication. Every action was designed to show both resolve and restraint, balancing strength with responsibility. President Marcos Jr. and his officials stood united, projecting an image of strength, unity, and unwavering commitment to the nation's sovereignty. The actions taken in those critical hours set a new, assertive tone for the country's foreign policy. The Philippine flag was raised with renewed pride, and the nation's defenders prepared for whatever might come next. Across the country, ordinary Filipinos rallied in support, waving flags and attending solidarity events. The nation was no longer passive. A new spirit of determination swept through the people. The world watched as the Philippines stood its ground, determined to defend its rights and protect its people, no matter the odds. In this moment of crisis, the leadership was tested, and it was clear that they were rising to the challenge, ready to guide the nation through whatever lay ahead. The West Philippine Sea is a vital artery for global trade. 1/3 of the world's shipping passes through these waters. Any conflict here would shake the global economy. That's why nations from Washington to Tokyo are watching closely. The dispute is not just local, it's a flashpoint with global stakes. The Philippines sits at a strategic crossroads. For allies, a sovereign Philippines is key to a free Indo-Pacific. If China controls these waters, it could restrict navigation and gain immense leverage. The area also holds untapped oil and gas, resources crucial for the Philippines' future. China's sweeping claims block Filipino access to these riches. The conflict is about sovereignty, prosperity, and energy security. It's also a test of international law. The Hague Tribunal ruled for the Philippines, but China ignores it. The struggle is for the principle that right, not might, should prevail. Facing China's assertiveness, the Philippines knows it can't stand alone. The Mutual Defense Treaty with the U.S. has been revived. Washington reaffirmed an attack on Philippine forces in the South China Sea triggers mutual defense. The Philippines is also building ties with Australia, Japan, Canada, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Joint military exercises are more frequent and complex. The region is uniting against aggression. At home, the Philippines is modernizing its military. New ships, patrol boats, radar, and fighter jets. The goal isn't to match China, but to make aggression costly. It's a porcupine defense, hard to attack, ready to resist. Alliances provide an external shield. Modernization builds an internal one. This layered deterrence signals any attack will meet a unified, capable response. Securing the nation's future means forging these shields now. For coastal fishing communities, the conflict is about survival. Generations have relied on rich fishing grounds now blocked by Chinese ships. Fishermen are chased, their nets cut, their catch confiscated. Incomes have plummeted, families struggle. Young people leave for cities, traditions fade. Yet the spirit of these communities endures. They adapt, fish where they can, and speak out. Their stories put a human face on the conflict. The fight is not just for territory, but for livelihoods and dignity. Government and NGOs offer support, but it's not enough. Fishermen want one thing: to return to their waters without fear. Their struggle is a reminder. The West Philippine sea fight is for justice and the right to live with dignity. Their courage inspires the nation. The Philippines stands at a crossroads. The path ahead is fraught with risk. The nation must balance diplomacy with deterrence, talking to China, but standing firm. At stake, territorial integrity, vital resources, and the principle of international law. If the Philippines yields, it sends a dangerous message to the world. For Filipinos, this is about national identity and dignity. The Ayungin Shoal incident has united the country. From government to fishing villages, a new sense of purpose has emerged. Unity gives leaders the will to act assertively. The world is watching a nation that refuses to be intimidated. The story is one of resilience, brave sailors, steadfast fishermen, and a united public. The journey will be hard, but the resolve is strong. The Philippines is ready to navigate these troubled waters and shape its own future.